Hi, and welcome to The Curling Show, the podcast that brings you interviews with the sport's top athletes and the people who shape the game. Brought to you by Local 59 and their line of steel furniture. See it at local59.com. I'm Dean Gemmel, and in this edition, we spoke with John Morris a few hours before his second game at the National in Port Hawkesbury, Nova Scotia. Thanks for being on the show, John, and talking to us during the National out in Port Hawkesbury. Looks like you guys handled Ralph Stockley pretty easily last night. How did that go?
We had a good start. We were a bit tired from travel, as I'm sure a lot of the teams here were, because it's a 2-hour trip from Halifax, and so like I got here at 3 and arrived in Halifax at 3 and got to the game about 40 minutes before game time. So we just tried to remain focused out there because we thought that was going to be our biggest issue, and we were able to do that. And I got a couple lucky breaks. One of Ralph's picked early, so we ended up starting off pretty well. We got a tough one today against Stoughton, though, so we're going to have to bounce back strong.
Enough about you. What about your dad? Looks like your dad spared last night for Pat Simmons, and it sounds like he played pretty well.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I was on the shuttle over here with two of the Simmons rink, and they were saying that two of their guys got snowed in Saskatoon. So first thing Ben Hebert says, he's the lead on Simmons. He was, what about Earl of Pearl? Because Earl's my dad, and he's coaching us at the trial. So I'm sure he'd get a kick out of that. I'm sure he'd be pretty pumped to play. He hasn't played in competitively in about 8 years. So I think he set the record for the oldest player ever to play in a Grand Slam. But he sure had a blast out there last night, and they were able to round up Patrick Hurleman too. And it was the legendary team, and they ended up playing pretty well too. So Ben, after the game, said that was the funnest curling game I've ever played in.
Yeah, it sounds like he had a good time. Did the rest of his team get there now, or is
Earl
on?
They arrived just at the end of the game last night, so they were practicing, and they should be ready to go today.
All right. Hey, there's been some of the typical internet chatter about how the field was established for the event, and in particular, like that Mark Dacey's not there, and there's a lot of international teams, and that maybe Pierre Charette or Jean-Michel Menard should have been there. You got any thoughts on how the field is decided?
Well, I'm pretty sure that, all the regulations were set out, earlier on in the summer. So it's tough, you set criteria, which is, the top 8 on tour at the time. And, that's the criteria they were following. And, I think it's a good thing, the fact that, curling has grown over the last 5 years or so. But to ever, get it to a level that I'm sure every curler would like to see, it's going to have to become, bigger internationally. So I don't think it's a bad thing that we include a lot of these international teams. If anything, I think it's a bonus.
Yeah, no, I like the international fields.
Yeah, for sure, and it actually puts a little bit more pressure on us Canadian teams to pull up our socks and make sure that we're not just qualifying in events. We have to go a little bit farther than that.
You have to represent well, or else Canadians get upset.
For sure.
Hey, you spared for Richard Hart last weekend in Manitoba with Glenn Howard. What was it like to play with your old teammates?
Oh, we had a blast. I think it was, for Langer and Saville, it was their first time playing in Portage, and it's a good spiel. Your hotel's connected to the curling rink, and it was just great to be able to play with those guys again. We haven't played together in a couple of years now, and it's sure a treat playing with Glenn Howard. He throws probably the best I've seen out there, and it's really nice to read. I didn't have a problem playing third behind him at all. They played great all weekend, and it was just unfortunate we couldn't, come out with a win, but I think we had a pretty successful weekend overall.
Hey, before we talk about your season so far, let's talk a bit about last year. Your team was one of those teams that qualified for the Olympic trials in 2004 when you lost the Canada Cup final to Ferbey. And you played a ton of events last year, but I think by your own admission, you probably didn't have a real great season. You won a lot of games, but didn't seem to quite win the right games. I asked other teams that qualified early for the trials if it had any effect last year and made last year sort of feel like one big warm-up for this December. Did you guys feel that way at all last year?
Well, we did, you sort of hit the nail on the head there. We did play quite a bit last year, and I think we actually played too much, and we're probably a victim of burnout a little bit. We just played weekend after weekend, and we didn't really put a lot of time into our game. And as only a second-year team together, we probably should have put more time into the development phase of our team. So that's one thing we really looked at in the off-season, and we didn't want to burn out again this year. So we've sort of scheduled our season a little bit more around gearing up for the trials and really trying to get better in certain aspects of the game that we needed to. We've already practiced more in the first 3 weeks this year than we did all year last year. So it's starting to pay some dividends, and probably by the fact that a couple of us, most of our income comes from curling. That's why we wanted to put so much time into it over the last couple of years, is because we thought it would be more beneficial to us, but it actually backfired a bit and burnt us out a bit. So I think we're taking the right approach this year, and we'll see in December how it all pans out.
Last season's results, I guess, are why you're ranked number 14 in the new Black Book of Curling. So do you think that's a fair assessment, or have you taken that up with Dallas?
We definitely had an off year last year, and I think the year before that we were ranked third. third in the world, and to be ranked 14th, I think is a pretty fair assessment. I'm not, I sort of took that personally last year, and that was our worst year personally that I've had on tour in a long time, and I was a little, I felt pretty bad that I let down my team because. So I've really tried to take it personally this year, and Dallas is a good friend of ours, but he's not going to sugarcoat anything, and I'm glad that that's sort of a wake up call for us, and we've started to take that into our own hands this year, and I think that the ranking systems that they've developed with the Blackboard Curling is very good. It takes into account winning percentage and a bunch of other statistics, and I think that's a fair observation.
Yeah, I think it's a great book, and it's a lot of work they put into it, and I think it's terrific, so I hope more curlers buy it. Hey, you talked a little about yourself and your play last year. Let's talk about your style and the way you play the game. I think you bring a real good dose of excitement. You're young, you play aggressive. I think it's good that there's even a male curler that female fans like to watch, frankly. But let's say, unlike a guy like Jeff Stoughton, your emotions are pretty obvious when you're playing, and I think that's why a lot of curling fans either sort of love you or hate you. So there's not much middle ground with you. Do you ever wonder if it might help your performance if your emotions were a little less obvious? Have you ever talked to sports psychologists about that, or is that how you've always played and you want to keep playing?
Well, if you saw me when I was about 15, it would be a heck of a lot more obvious, I'll tell you. I used to have quite the temper when I was younger, but it's one thing my father would always say is, you have to make sure you try to keep your temper and your emotions under control a bit, because it's great to show some intensity, but not to go overboard, and you'll lose players to play with, that sort of thing. So he preached that to me at a young age, and I think I was worse when I was younger. I've definitely been victim of breaking the odd broom, but I don't think I've broken a broom all year, and only one last year, so that's definitely getting better for me.
Well, those new brooms are more expensive too.
I know, and they're harder to break. But no, it's I play with a bit of an edge, and I think that if I lose that edge, it helps me stay focused and to play well out there. There is a line there, by going over that line, and I think some players do sometimes cross that line, but as long as I don't go over the line, and I think playing with intensity and a bit of an edge helps me keep my focus and keep my confidence. So it's something that I've done in my whole life, and I'm not going to go out there and mask anything. If I'm thinking that, geez, I got to watch, because the cameras are on me or who's watching, then that's the time when I'm not going to play well. When I'm myself out there and I can do what comes naturally to me, then that's when it seems to go well. So yeah, that's you'll continue to see that from me, and I've definitely controlled myself as far as anger management a little bit is concerned, but as far as emotionally and intensity, I'm sure I still play with that.
Hey, balance is a good thing, isn't it? So
yeah.
There's been a lot of focus on your record against Randy Ferbey over the years, and as great a team as they are, on paper your teams are more evenly matched, I think, than the record shows. What do you think about that? Are they in your head a little bit, or is it just the way things have gone?
Well, we definitely seem to not play as well against Randy, and it seems as good as they are, we've never really had a game there where you get some breaks and all of a sudden you're ahead by a couple of points. They've always played really well against us, and we've played well, but not great. And to beat a team like that consistently, you have to play great. So it's something we've worked at, and the more we play them, the better, because obviously it increases your odds of ever beating the guy. So they're a great team, and they're tough to beat. And all we can hope is that we're as best prepared for them and best prepared for the other teams at the trials that we can be by the time we get there. So we're trying not to think about that too much. We know that our record isn't very, very good against them, but once you step on the ice, it's a brand new ball game, and hopefully our time will come.
I guess you'd keep that record if you get one win at the right time, right?
Exactly. That's what maybe someone up there is just saving that one big win for the most important one. So we'll see.
Hey, you packed your bags and headed west from Ontario to Alberta a few years ago. What was behind that? Was it just a point in your life where you sort of felt like you had to bust a move, or what caused that?
Well, I just graduated from university, and I didn't really have anything holding me back in Ontario. I had some family out west, and from traveling out there on tour, I really enjoyed the Western lifestyle and really enjoyed the city of Calgary, so I thought I'd give it a run. And I knew there was some, probably the best teams in the country at the time were in Alberta, and it would be nice to play against them. And you got to beat the best to be the best, right? So, and they have really good training facilities out there in Calgary. The National Training Center is located out there, and just thought it'd be a good change. I didn't really have anything holding me back in Ontario, and I don't know if it's going to be permanent. I'm still not sure. I bought a house out there, but I'm still not 100% sure. So I guess the trials will have will dictate a lot
right.
of that. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
We talked a bit about your style and everything on the ice, and I think some people might be surprised when they hear you work with special needs kids. What kind of rewards do you get out of that? How do you get into that?
Well, actually, it's funny because a lot of people see me on ice and then they meet me in person, and it's quite a different story. I'm pretty intense out there, and that's how I play every sport. I have a competitive edge, and I play to win. But as soon as you're off the ice, it's I love meeting the people, playing the game, and I like to consider myself a pretty positive and easygoing guy. And I've always loved working with kids. A dream of mine has always been to be a teacher, but it's pretty tough to be a teacher in curl, as Marcel Rock proved. But I've worked with special needs kids when I first moved out to Calgary for about 2 years, and I've just recently now I'm firefighting for about 20 hours a week out in Chestermere, Alberta, and I'm also bartending a couple nights a week. And eventually, I think firefighting would be a great fit, and I'm looking at applying to a couple of cities in the area, and we'll see what happens. It's just tough because if you want to be a competitive curler at a really elite level for most of your life and most of your career, you have to find a working career that sort of ties into that. And something like firefighting with shift work is would be a pretty good fit. And I've worked there for about 6 months now in Chestermere, and it's been quite the experience. So I think that's my newest focus is doing something along those lines, and we'll see where it goes from here. Obviously, for the last year or so, our number one priority has been the Olympic trials, so everything sort of revolves around that. But it'd be nice one day to actually be able to sit back and try to work at a career and not have so much pressure on curling.
Yeah, I think after golf pro, firefighting might be the best gig for a curler.
Yeah, my golf game just isn't good enough these days, so I think that I'd love to be a full-time firefighter, and I think it's a very noble profession. And from my experience I've had so far, it'd be a treat to be able to do that full-time and to be able to curl full-time too. So.
Hey, you played with Joe Franz in Ontario. Have you talked to him since the suspension?
Actually, Joe and I had a pretty clear-cut relationship. We would curl, and then we wouldn't really hear from the guy until the next time we curled. So when I left to Calgary, we parted on good terms, but I haven't really spoken to him besides the times when he was on tour since I moved out there. And I've always had a lot of respect for the guy. I think he's a great shooter and a great guy. And I don't know what he got mixed up with there, and he definitely that would never came up with our team. But I wish him all the best, and I hope that that he comes back strong and is able to play at an elite level again.
Yeah, I'd like to see him get back too. I mean, there's no question it's not a performance-enhancing drug he was using, so I'd like to see him get back out there. Hey, Runback segment is the last thing I end with every interview, and I give you a topic, and you give me your thoughts on it in 1 to 3 words.
Sure.
All right, here we go. Opponent you enjoy playing against the most?
Ed Wernick.
Win 2 slams in a season or 1 Purple Heart?
Ooh. 1 Purple Heart.
New female curlers calendar?
That girl from Poland is hot.
Alberta?
Toughest province to win.
Ontario?
Second toughest.
Favorite athlete when you were growing up?
Tom Longboat.
Who the heck is Tom Longboat?
He's a native runner for Canada. Did a project on him. He was very inspiring. Also, we'll give you Wendell Clark.
Wendell Clark.
Dougie Gilmore, Wendell Clark. There's 2 more.
All right, sir. Hey, thanks, John. I appreciate your time. Good luck the rest of the way this weekend. I hope you guys do well, and we'll be watching the rest of the season.
All right, Dean.
Take care.
Yeah, take care.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
That's John Morris on The Curling Show, brought to you by Local 59. Desks, tables, and T-shirts are on the web at local59.com. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the pudding.